7 miles. That's all that separates U.S. warships, Venezuelan waters, and Trinidadian fishermen told to hug the shore. You're watching drug boats explode in international waters, so what happens when a target ducks behind a sovereign flag? Today we break down the ROE knife edge in the Gulf of Paria, when counter-narcotics turns into crisis management. We'll map the literal choke points, hear why locals say, "We are all panicking," and test the decision tree a skipper faces at night when lights from Venezuela glare off the water. What would you authorize, hold fire or press the intercept? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Venezuelan smuggling networks in the Caribbean. Several fast boats suspected of trafficking drugs were destroyed in international water, but for fishermen in Trinidad, only 7 miles from Venezuela, those strikes felt far too close for comfort. These islands over here are still part of Trinidad. This route that we're on right now in this boat.
A smuggler drops the throttles and points at the dotted line. 7 miles to safety. 7 miles to a headline. The operating picture is dense. U.S. Navy hulls ride the seams, Allied Coast Guard cutters work the lanes, and a web of patrol craft fills the gaps. The Caribbean transit zone feeds into the Gulf of Paria like a funnel. At night, fast boats go low and fast, dark hulls skimming chop, outboards screaming, wakes bleeding into black water. The gap between Trinidad and Venezuela is not a blank space. It is a corridor where speed, noise, and light give away intent before flags do. But the bind starts before the chase. The rules of engagement are tight. You can act in the blue water to cut narcotics and human smuggling. You can hail, shadow, and warn. You can press, within authority. The second a contact angles for Venezuelan territorial seas or hints at state protection, you must ease off or you risk taking a law enforcement stop and turning it into a sovereign fight. That's the knife edge. 1 minute you're chasing a felony. The next you're staring at a flag. Now run a night intercept. The surface search radar throws a thin return on the scope. Small craft. Variable speed. EO/IR swings and locks. Heat blooms on deck. Rectangles. That stack profile looks like bales. You go to hails. No reply. You light up with a blue beacon, then white, then laser dazzler. The boat slides left, bow toward the 12 nautical mile arc. Your coxswain calls range to the line. Your legal advisor on the net reminds you, authority now, no authority past that arc without more. You run up to a demonstration. You cross the bow at offset, show presence, throw a siren burst. The suspect holds course. You escalate to a disabling drill in your head and check distance again. The shoreline's glow gets brighter. Standard practice is layered and deliberate because distance vanishes fast in narrow water. You query. You warn. You demonstrate intent with maneuvers and non-lethal signals. Only if the threat and mission demand it do you move to disable, and even then you verify target class, cargo, and crew status. Positive identification is more than a label, it is a chain of checks: hull type, behavior, deck load, comms behavior, because one bad call in a crowded literal rights policy in blood and ink. Think of ROE as a narrow channel with reefs on both sides. Steer too close to one, you grind sovereignty and trigger a diplomatic surge. Hug the other, you miss the interdiction, and the network learns the seam and runs it harder tomorrow. There's no wide water here. Only tight turns, shallow charts, and a current that wants to set you onto the rocks.
2 kilometers off the island, don't go that direction. But anywhere else up on the coast, this side we could fish. It's 7 miles away from Trinidad, very, very close. that you can look and see it. You can see a vehicle passing on the land. Foot is very close.
On shores, you can actually see the lights of Venezuela at night, and any escalation between the two countries would hit here first.
Legally, the split is clear and hard. Against non-state smugglers on the high seas, you have authority to act. Once inside Venezuelan territory, you do not have authority to strike without new legal cover and a fresh decision at the top. That boundary is more than a line on a chart. It is a wall of policy and risk. Cross it without orders and you move from crime control to state-on-state friction in one burst of gunfire. Meanwhile, local pressure rises. Trinidad works with U.S. patrols and takes the heat. Caracas answers with loud words, calling Trinidad's leader a terrorist and a murderer. That rhetoric bleeds into the water. Fishermen hear it and then hear the new guidance: stay inside 2 kilometers. They lose ground, they fish every day. One of them says, "Yes, we are all panicking."
People or whatever across to Trinidad. So there's a heavy presence of the Coast Guard of the Trinidad and Tobago ply these waters to just try to make a living, are now being told not to go more than 2 kilometers.
I'm a fisherman for 28 years, fishing in Trinidad and Tobago waters. Yes, we are all panicking.
Nets shrink. Fuel burns for nothing. The patrol patterns that push smugglers also squeeze livelihoods. This is why the 7-mile gap turns tactics into strategy. Every chase risks a border. Every warning shot has a blast radius you can't see on radar. The same lights on the Venezuelan shore that help you range the 12-mile arc remind you that any fast move is visible from land. The margin for error is inches at the helm and miles in the press. Next we map the fight. The Gulf's shape, its currents and wind lanes, the way sodium lights in coastal towns paint the surface and silhouette a hull, all of it builds choke points that runners exploit and commanders try to predict on the hour. Distance is doctrine. In tight littorals, 7 miles crushes time, choices, and the buffer that keeps tempers cool. You feel it at the helm, the board fills, the shoreline brightens, and the window to act snaps shut. So what would you authorize at the line, hold fire or press the intercept? Comment your choice below, and subscribe for deeper breakdowns of modern ROE in contested waters. These gray zones reward discipline, clear comms, and a calm trigger finger. The Gulf of Paria is the new battle space, crime, law, and flags colliding at night. Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict.